69-10. The final score of the Baylor game on Saturday, but things weren't perfect for the Bears, and there's a lot of stuff to clean up before you go into BYU. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday and happy Labor Day, everybody. Drake Toll alongside Cameron Stewart. Both of us work for Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears, and we were in attendance on Saturday. Cam, thank you.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure, honestly.
And thank you at home for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. It comes from a point of privilege when your team can score 69 points, hold the opposing team to 10, and the top of the show, we talk about what we're upset with, but upset's also a strong word. I'm just a little surprised, taken aback, dumbfounded. It's too strong of a word.
That's strong too, yeah.
With Baylor's offensive and defensive lines, where I thought the game would be won immediately, just were underwhelming in my mind. The right side of the offensive line broke down multiple times, both in the run game and the pass game. The defensive line didn't swallow up every single Albany player, aside from like Gabe Hall and the piano guys, whatever. The two units as a whole, though, I was more impressed with the secondary. I was the defensive line. I just didn't see that coming.
Yeah, we expected them to win in the trenches because that's what they did all last year, and that's what we heard all this summer and spring. And it was like, well, you know, the skill players aren't coming back, but defense travels, and you win the game in the trenches, and they're bringing all those guys back, and they're bringing their coordinators back, and how great is that? And I will agree with you. I was a little underwhelmed, not to say it was bad. It was just fine. I expected an FCS team coming into town. When that happens, that you would just run the ball down their throat all night, especially trying out some new running backs. I know you're trying out new receivers too, but you know, we talk about the Jeff Grimes offense, and they want to win by pounding the ball right down your throat. And I just thought that's what we were going to see, you know, 4 or 5 different guys out of the backfield and just running at them all night. They basically did that in the second half, but passed a lot of the first half. So the pass protection was actually pretty good. Shapen had plenty of time back there for the most part. But the defensive line too, I just thought we were going to see a couple P's in the B, you know, a lot of parties in the backfield. Instead, we didn't get much of that. Only a couple of sacks. I should pull up the stats, but 2 or 3. Yeah. And it wasn't, you know, not many of those plays where it's like, oh man, he just got it away. Some quarterback scrambles with the play breaking down. So credit the secondary on that. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, I expected like a 6 or 8 sack night against a team that, you know, can't run the ball, can't pass the ball. Instead, we didn't really get that, you know, like you say, cherry picking in terms of, they only gave up 10 points. So, yeah. And they won by 59 points. Also, what was a little surprising to me, 1 turnover in the whole game. 1 turnover.
Yeah.
You're facing a team that bad. Quarterback looked a little bit better than I thought he was going to, but 1 turnover. That was something the team really hung their hat on last year, because I think the secondary was a bit of a vulnerability at times. You know, not bad, but they were susceptible to the big pass play. Yeah. But they made up for it by having absolute ball hawks back there. And JT Woods had 6 or 7 interceptions last year. Jalen Petrie's a ball hawk, you know, so they made up for it by getting those big turnovers and getting big plays out of that. And I don't know it's the same kind of dogs back there this year in that sense, but I'll agree with you. I thought they looked pretty good last night. But 1 turnover force, I was like, would have expected more. And here we are, just, you know, lambasting this team at 160-10.
Exactly. This was
not a little lower of the expectations.
It was not a bad performance by any means whatsoever, but it wasn't an A+ performance. I don't know if we expected that, but I expected more, at least from the offensive and defensive lines, as much as we've hyped them up the entire offseason. There were 2 sacks in the game. One of them came from Alfonso Allen, the freshman safety from Miami. Nosiaki Ika with a sack. Gabe Hall had a half a sack. Jackson Player had a half a sack. But they didn't eat as many Albany players as I thought the defensive line was just going to swallow up, bones and all. And that was surprising to me. The linebacker core was fine. It was tackled by committee. I think somebody put the stat out there. I wish I could get it spot on, and I may be lying here, but I've counted earlier. I believe it was 21 players for Baylor made a sack yesterday. Matt Jones, Al Walcott, a couple of the guys that had 4 in that one. So, I mean, defense by committee is great. The depth was great as well. But defensive line did not eat Albany players. And the offensive line, the right side breaking down was kind of surprising. I'm not sure if I was ready for the O-line to look as sloppy as they did it at certain times in this game.
Yeah, I think they said the same thing in 2014 after Baylor beat Buffalo, but that guy turned out to be Khalil Mack. But anyway, I think the positive to take from this, because I'm going to take a positive spin for once, Drake, is both the lines were obviously outstanding last year too. They both started pretty slow. Offensive line did not get great push in those first big games, like Oklahoma State, for example. Again, a great defense for Oklahoma State, to be fair. But Abram Smith hadn't really got it going against Iowa State or Oklahoma State, and then he picked it up. And so did the offensive line. Same thing for the defensive line. I think it's after that Oklahoma State game too, which is the first week in October, where I'm like, the Siaki Ika guy, what is he? Is he just going to be a down and distance type of player? Is he a guy who can be out there every down? I just don't know what he does here. And he ends up becoming
he was good,
close to an All-American. Yeah. I mean, he was an outstanding player and could be an All-American this year. So I think that's hopefully the direction that Baylor will go in, because we talked about it all through the spring and the summer, that was going to be, the question marks are at the skill positions, but you can't overstate how big it is to bring back your whole offensive line with so much experience, and the same thing on the defensive line with the foundation of your defense. And so I hope it just gets better by week, but neither of those units won the game for Baylor, which you probably aren't going to against Albany, because your skill players are good enough to do that. But at some point, those guys are going to need to win games for you. You're going to need to win it in the trenches. And I just didn't see a ton from them last night.
Cam,
just didn't see it done.
Before we hop into the positives of the 69-point game, does that performance beat BYU in Provo?
I mean, that performance, no, but we didn't see the full game plan yesterday or Saturday, excuse me. Shapen is in for one drive in the second half, and he doesn't even attempt to pass. I think they kept it pretty basic last night. Simple and easy, but I think they kept it pretty basic in week 1. I think it will be a different look at BYU, and I don't know who that starting running back is going, or who's going to get the bulk of the carries on Saturday. Yeah, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was running back by committee, just like it was last year, which is not a bad thing by any means. Last year, you had guys like Treston Enbar and Jarai Bonham, Tyquan Thompson, also really good.
Who could forget?
Dave Aranda was as head coach as well.
Did they get Abram Smith right? Did they?
I think they did. They got Abraham,
which is crazy. That's the easiest to not put Abraham.
Right, Smith. For those that don't know, ESPN Plus had some issues with spelling at times during last night's game, and issues is putting it lightly. Who doesn't have issues though, Cam? That would be Built Bar. You and I have actually had Built Bars together.
We toasted them,
including today's flavor, which is why I'm going to leave you on for the ad read. Today's flavor that we are plugging is the delicious, indulgent cookie dough Built Bar. Covered in chocolate, real chocolate. Built Bar has done it again. Cam, you remember where we were when we ate those Built Bars together?
How could I forget? You know where I was? I was in heaven.
Yep. And to be in Cabo too, on the shiny, shimmering white beaches.
It was crazy.
The sand, and then there they were, these Built Bar puffs.
And that made it perfect. Built Bar made it perfect.
Everything about it, great. Mostly because only 160 calories. They have 15 grams of protein. 15. That was the age of my friend Chad's dog, who recently was put down. That's a lot.
Sorry to hear that.
That's old.
To you, Chad.
That is a lot.
It's pretty old. It's a good life for a dog.
It's a long life. BuiltBar.com. Cookie dough chunk puff, 100% real chocolate.
You're going to get a comment in the YouTube section from Built Bar.
Probably.
It's going to be like every other comment on YouTube. Get Cam off my screen. Get Cam off my podcast. I pay you guys good money. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, we get it constantly and I have to fight them off. But here you are still alive on a Monday. Happy Labor Day.
Here we are. I've met some of the
Built.com.
fans now. How about it?
Use promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off. Locked on 15, actually. Locked on 15% off. Built.com. Cam, there were some good things. Blake Shapen did not win the Heisman yesterday, but he could win the Heisman this season. Like, Cam, aside from him not releasing the ball faster, which we'll get to, he'll talk about that later in the show, there was not a ton that I didn't like from Blake Shapen. He was amazingly accurate. The deep ball was almost always there. He went 17 for 20. He just is good at football.
I loved his performance on Saturday. Loved it.
Automatic.
I didn't expect him to be bad. No way. But yeah, maybe I expected some jitters. You know, this guy comes in and he is the guy for the first time.
Yeah.
And he maybe overthrows a couple. He didn't really do that. 17 to 20, I think he finished with for 214, couple of touchdowns through the air, one on the ground. Basically flawless for me. And I think there was only one play where he really improvised. So that means, or I should say passing play that he improvised. And so that says to me that everyone executed very well. And Blake was humble about it post game. He put it on his O-line and his receivers. By the way, 6 different pass catchers for him. I think that's a nice number. Week 1, and they're all new guys. I mentioned it in my Inside the Bears story. Only one of them had 10 or more receptions last year, is Ben Sims. The rest are guys who are really seeing the field for the first time when the game is in doubt, so to speak. So loved it yesterday. So deadly accurate, and some mustard on that ball. Yeah. I said, you know, the Charlie Brewer comparisons are very apt for sure. But I think Blake, what kind of separates him is he's got a better arm. Charlie, for all the great things he did for us, I just didn't have a ton of zip on it. Blake does. Kyron Drones does, by the way. Yeah. We saw that late in the game. He can put some English on it too. It's not the end all be all, but I thought he looked really, really good, looked in control. And we kind of heard from Aranda post game, which we will have on this episode. We're going to hear from Dave, or we're just hearing from Blake? We're going to hear from Dave too?
Dave's here. He's in the queue.
But he was saying, you know, just nothing phases the kid. He's got the beautiful mind thing going on, was the example he used, but you don't see it. He just takes all in stride, Joe Cool. And that's why we didn't see any of those overthrows, those pregame jitters, those what the heck are you doing type of throws, or runs, really. There's one he should have slid and he didn't.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, you can't play it much better than that. All those stats, by the way, again, all in the first half. Didn't attempt to pass in the second half. So 17 to 20 for 214, couple of tuds, both over 30 yards. That's pretty good. We did find out that it was basically an RPO, that play just before halftime, which I would have loved maybe just calling a pass play there, because I think there was literally 1 second on the clock.
Yes.
Going into that play. Like, it was down on that play. And he runs what looks like a bootleg, but I guess it was more of an RPO and makes a great play, but barely gets in there. I would have loved to not leave points on the board. I know they scored 69 at the end of the game, but would have loved maybe a little bit more direction there. But hey, the kid made it work. And I thought he played pretty much as perfectly as you can ask for.
Yeah, had a 90 QBR. The only better QBR on the field was Kyron Drones, who had a 99 after going 5 for 7 with 100 yards. Baylor quarterbacks, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns. On the ground, Richard Reese was hello. You have to include that guy in a consistent role moving forward. Yes?
Well, yeah, if you read my Inside the Bears piece today, which I'm sure y'all will have read by now. I honestly, I'm not the coach, but I would seriously consider having him out there as kind of the feature back. And it's not just that Tate didn't have a great game, because he didn't. I pulled up the stats here, but he got obviously a bulk of the carries, especially in the first half when, again, they were trying to pass a little bit more. But McWilliams goes 12 attempts for 45 yards, under 4 yards a carry against a team that gave up 200 rushing yards a game last year.
Yeah.
And Richard Reese comes in, and again, you do need the caveat, the grain of salt, if you will, that he's playing a lot of backups on an FCS team that only won 2 games last year, but 9 attempts for 62, a couple of touchdowns, 7 yards of carry.
MVP.
I just think his style suits the feature back game more for what we have seen from a Jeff Grimes offense. Again, a little bit more of that north and south. Got some good leverage on some of those plays, knocked a couple of guys down. Sqwirl Williams can be a physical back, but I don't think that's his preferred method. I think he's got good speed, and he was trying to get to the outside a lot, which, again, I don't think is really what Baylor's going to want to do. But we saw Abram Smith and Treston Ebner last year, and Barr, and how well they complemented each other, kind of Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside type of thing. I think that can work from what we saw last night, but Richard Reese then is your Mr. Inside. So you're starting back, your horse. And so I'll be interested to see where you got to dial it up a couple of different ways against BYU this weekend. If we see more Richard Reese earlier in the game, he just looked impressive. And that's, again, it's a name. It's not like it was out of nowhere. His stock was rising and rising and rising from the spring game all the way up through fall camp.
Yeah.
So I think this guy you're going to see a lot more of. And I thought we would see a little bit more Sqwirl, Drake. I don't know what you thought about that, but he gets the touchdown. I think it's the second touchdown. And we don't see much of him for the rest of the game.
Craig did score like a 4-yard touchdown, which is fun.
Craigery. Yep, he did.
Craig
but other
Williams.
than that, he did not. He had 3 attempts, 13 yards. So,
yeah.
But Quaylon Jones got some
right.
time at the end of the game, but I think that was, I don't know how much more you'll see of Quaylon Jones. He's
running
a lot
back
like Sqwirl Williams.
By committee. There are 5 guys that could get 5 touches a game, and that all fill a role. Richard Reese, on the topic of player of the game, is not the player of the game. A guy named Monaray Baldwin absolutely is. 2 carries, 46 yards, a touchdown, 50-yard carry for a score, by the way, in the second half.
Do the math there. Do the math.
So how do we, 4 receptions,
but impressive nonetheless.
84 yards and a touchdown for Baldwin through the air, through the receiving. But yeah, he's the player of the game. He's the player of the game.
Yeah.
Josh Fleeks, also great punt return, probably Big 12 punt returner, special teams player. Gavin Holmes, jeez, Big 12 special teams player of the year this year, because all it takes one.
Probably. Yeah,
it only takes one. Treston Ebner that one time did it against Kansas, and the Big 12 was like, well, that is it. Yeah. During that 2-7 season. So another big play, but even still, and I know he's gone through a lot, so he gets kind of the honorable mention player of the game, or he gets play of the game, play of the game.
Sure.
But Monaray Baldwin was fantastic, fast guy.
Yeah, well, we knew that for sure. But I put it in my notebook. This kid's a weapon. I think he's a legitimate weapon. He's no one-hit wonder. Yeah. It helps that he ran the same play and scored a touchdown that he scored in the Sugar Bowl. But he's fast. He's got some good hands. That was a contested ball on that first touchdown. That's actually one that Shapen kind of underthrows a little bit. The 47-yarder hits him right in the end zone there. But I think he's a guy you could put in a couple of different positions. Obviously, the jet sweep is going to be a little bit better than Drew Estrada was. You could play him in the slot. You could play him on the outside. He blocks well for a guy that's his size, 5'9", 165. That's a slight lad. That's about me, actually. He is definitely a little stronger than I. He's a little bit less of a gut, but and a little faster. But he's a guy.
Keep going.
Yes, I mean maybe a little smarter,
better looking,
a little bit better than football. I'm not ready to go that far yet. Sex symbol of the Baylor Lariat, voted by a jury of my peers. Anyway, that was yesterday. That was before I started losing my hair and have to wear hats everywhere. I just think he's a guy you can employ at a ton of different positions, and Baylor's going to need that at points this year because we talk about the young running backs, the young receivers, especially early in that conference schedule. Monaray Baldwin hasn't played that much either, remember, but he's an impact guy where you can run bit style plays like we saw the jet sweep in the Sugar Bowl when we hadn't really seen him all year. He's not going to sneak up on anyone anymore, but he'll run past you. So there's that. I am very high on Monaray Baldwin. It's usually other stuff, usually other substances, but right now I am high on Monaray Baldwin.
Lock it in. Great game, Monaray. Monorail, don't matter. You're not stopping it. The passing game was there. The running game became there later on. You saw stuff out of guys you weren't necessarily expecting to have Richard Reese I didn't think he'd lead the team in rushing yards. And the
I watched the
secondary,
game back. I liked Richard Reese even more.
yeah, secondary too was good. They were sharp. So that's all the good stuff. We've taken the good, we've taken the bad, all of that. Let's hear from the boss man himself, Blake Shapen, and Dave Aranda. All of that coming up right now. Here are the best clips. Best 7 minutes from Saturday's pressers.
Blake, you obviously came out very hot. Did you feel like you were in a good groove all night? And just how did it feel to connect with your receivers?
Yeah, I felt good all night. A huge testament to the receivers and all the guys around me, the O-line, everyone that made that possible. And being able to start fast like we did and limit all the little mistakes like penalties and things like that early on helped us.
Blake, even having just wrapped up, what are the things you feel like could use immediate improvement offensively?
Everything really. I thought we played a good game tonight, but I feel like there's a lot of things that we can still improve on and maybe get lined up faster, or maybe me getting the ball out of my hands quicker and not taking the couple sacks that I took today. I think those are things that I need to work on, is getting the ball out maybe quicker than I did at a few moments today. And just everyone keep coming together collectively. We have a special team, and the only thing that can hurt us is if we drift apart and we're not a unit. And so I think us just growing together, it can take us a long way.
Blake, can you give us the PG version of what the coaches told you when you didn't slide, when you nearly got to the goal line, or were they happy that you kind of powered through there at the end?
It was a slight comment by Coach Bell. He said, probably get down next time.
Proud of the team. I look back at January, kind of starting with that first team meeting, and guys sitting in the front row of our little auditorium there, and I could see it on their faces that it was unnatural for them to sit there, because that's where Terrell Bernard sat, or that's where Jalen Petrie sat, and now they're sitting in there, and to move from that space right there to winter, where you're breaking everybody down and early morning workouts and you're giving guys assignments in terms of leadership and maybe getting out of their comfort zone, putting themselves out there and all that, to spring football, to where they're the guys that are saying something in the huddle if the feeling of the team isn't right, or if the energy isn't right, to summer, to fall camp, and to come out and attack this game the way we did. I think there's so many possible off ramps to not play at your best when you have a score like this, and to start the game and to end the game the way we did. Way proud of our team, way proud of our coaches, and speaks well to just the inner workings of all of it. So, to my knowledge, haven't had any injuries, so we're blessed with that. I thought, for us to come out throwing the ball was something that we've worked on a lot in fall camp, and then for us to get the running game going in the second half was really good to see, and it was a halftime. A halftime goal. And then defensively, I just thought time after time they were able to make stops and were able to tackle well. I think we were really concerned with that being the first game and tackling efficiently, and I thought they did. So with that, take any questions you guys got.
Dave, you kind of touched on it there, but was it intentional it seemed like it was mainly the passing game in the first half, and then you really focused on the run game in the second half?
Yeah, I think it was. I think early on we're getting some 9-man fronts, and those safeties were way down at 8 yards and sometimes tighter than that. And then I think we were running into some dirty looks, and we had some negative plays running the ball. And so we took advantage of that with some of the shot plays that came off of it, and I think that eventually loosened it up. The score probably had something to do with that too in the second half. But it was good to get the running game going.
Dave, you mentioned so many guys stepping up into leadership roles, a lot of new starters on both sides of the ball tonight. Was there any questions that you and your staff had about this team that was definitively answered with this win tonight?
That's a good one. Yeah, I think, we wanted to see guys make competitive catches, and they did. We wanted our skilled people to block on the perimeter, and they did. We wanted to see our young people, after they make a mistake, right, attack the next play. Really, we wanted to see our coaches, after our young people make a mistake, help them out the very next play, as opposed to whatever else, And then I think, you saw defensively the push that we could get in the quick throw game and the edges that we can set with the length on defense. And so those things, I think, were shown today.
Thank you, Coach Aranda and Blake Shapen. The highlights of the press conference on Saturday. I'm Drake Toll. That was Cameron Stewart, Dave Aranda, and Blake Shapen. Thanks for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. We'll be back again tomorrow with more coverage of the Baylor football game from Saturday and previews of Baylor BYU, one of the biggest games in the country coming up this weekend. I'm so excited for it. The first real test. Will Baylor be able to go to Provo and get the win? A lot of folks think it's an auto loss for Baylor, and they open as 2.5-point underdogs. What happens on Saturday? All that coming up the rest of this week on Locked On Baylor.